too close. Have you ever heard the saying, creativity is a muscle? Sounds pretty lame. Seems like it's the one thing that all these motivational speakers keep repeating. Creativity is a muscle, it must be exercised, it's a muscle. And the problem I've always had with that, how do you exercise it? What's a good way of exercising your creativity and treating it like a muscle? Welcome back. Today I'm gonna talk about a bunch of tips and a bunch of tricks that I use as not only a content creator on YouTube to be creative, but also as a magician to be creative within creating illusions. And I'm gonna give you some of those tips and tricks today, and hopefully you can use that towards your own projects. So let's go. So one of the first things I do is I question things. Questioning things is a really, really good way of finding out certain specific things about an item. So it may seem a little weird, but if I'm stuck and I want to create something using an object, I will write down 20 questions about this object. So at first the questions are gonna be something like, why is this black? Why does it smell? Why is it cylindrical? Why is it light? And so on and so forth. Now this seems redundant. By the time you get to question number 10, 12, 15, you start running out of ways to ask questions about a pen. There's nothing left to ask, so you start looking at the minute and minuscule details of this object, such as, why are there 3 different fonts? Why is there a small little indentation here? And as these questions get more and more specific, the creative part of your mind starts having to come up with creative questions. This exercise is not meant for you to find out the answers to these questions. It's just meant to make you ask questions you wouldn't normally ask about something and putting you in a mind state of being more creative. The next important tip to exercising your creativity is experimenting. It's alive! Probably my favorite of all the tips. Basically what that means is coming up with creative exercises that you can do in order to make a project go further and sort of advance it. Put yourself in a position that you have to be creative. One of the best ways to stay creative in experimentation is to write down your ideas. So have a notebook with you at all times. I tend to stay away from my phone when I'm taking notes just because you have sort of like a tactile memory thing when you're writing something down. No matter how silly, no matter how crazy they are, just write them down, keep that in a notebook, and you might get back to them later. Whiteboard experimentation is also a great way to get creative. So take a whiteboard and jot down ideas or draw something or just brainstorm. Find a word and see how you can dissect it into different parts. Just be creative, be silly, and you might end up in a random position. And putting yourself in a random position when being creative is super important. Here's why. It's one of those exercises that you can't do on your own. Your brain can't physically generate randomness because everything that your brain is thinking sort of ties into whatever goes on in your subconscious. So how do you create a random event? This is one of my favorite hacks to do when creating either a magic trick or a YouTube video or anything at all where I need to be creative. I take a book, but no matter what the book is, could be a dictionary, a thesaurus, anything at all. And right now for you guys, I'm gonna create the plot to a magic effect using a book. Here we go. I have no idea where this is gonna take me, by the way. All right, so we're gonna open up this book to a random page, and I'm gonna point to a word. I have no idea what word I'm pointing to. Let's have a look. However, okay, not the best word. What's the next word down? This may be fraternal intimacy. Okay, seems to be the word. Okay. How am I gonna create an effect with fraternal intimacy? What does that make me think of? Fraternal intimacy. Maybe that's an effect where 2 brothers share a bond, kind of like Siamese twins, and whatever happens to one of them happens to the other. Or perhaps the plot is something along the lines of using 2 kings in a deck of cards, which are actually brothers, but they get lost, and then due to their fraternal intimacy, they end up finding each other. Now, mind you, these aren't the best plots in the world, but as you can see, we've created some random event which helps us be creative in a way that we wouldn't have been otherwise. Maybe another example is better here. Let's try and find another one here. Time dissipates. Time dissipates. That's an interesting one. Again, if you're stumped, you can take the word time and ask 20 questions about time, and that'll start creating really, really interesting questions, I'm sure, by question number 10. What is time? Where is time? How much does time weigh? What does time look like? If I had no time, what would I feel? If I had more time, if I had all the time, what if I had no time? Can I borrow someone's time? Can I give them their time back? Can I take their time away? You see where I'm going with this. Association is the next tip. So take an object or a thing or a place or a person or whatever it may be and think of what does that thing, person, or place or anything remind you of. Here, this. This is a little cement object. I'm not exactly sure what it's for, but what does it remind me of? Other than something phallic, maybe it reminds me of an ice cream cone. Also kind of looks like one of those space shuttles they launch into orbit and that comes back down to Earth. Another way of associating things is taking an object and finding other uses for that object. Sometimes we can take a coin or a card or a ring and find a different use for it. Playing card could also be used to maybe clean out my fingernails. Kind of disgusting. You can make a paper airplane with this and throw it. You can probably use it to cut something open. You can use it to start a fire. I'm just spitballing here. There are many things that this can do. Another good exercise is whiteboarding with the object. So let's say we have a playing card and let's try to find things that are associated with playing cards and write those things down on a whiteboard. Box, maybe a card clip, poker night cigars. What about poker chips? Bookmark. And when folded a certain way, this can actually look like a pack of matches. Now there is an effect out there which already has that. Person saw something in a playing card which reminded him of something else and then came up with that effect, which is great. I think that was Dan White and Dan Haas. Lit? Correct me if I'm wrong. If you're doing cardistry, maybe you will look at this object and try to replicate this object using your playing cards. Maybe that'll put you in such a weird position that you've never been in before, and it'll get your creativity and your creative juices flowing. Try it out. Another really good tip for being creative is networking. Speaking to like-minded individuals or even individuals from different fields than yours and bouncing ideas off them. As a magician, a lot of the best ideas that I come up with for performance routines or plots usually come from things that are based outside of magic. So for instance, asking a non-magician friend of mine, if I had a pack of matches, what would be amazing? You know, and you're gonna get some really crazy responses that you didn't expect. Ooh, it just got bright here. So as another exercise, I'm going to network right now and show you what that looks like. I'm gonna call one of my friends, and words that we had in the book was fraternal intimacy and dissipating time, right? Time dissipating. Let's call up my buddy Xavier Spade and see what he has to say. FaceTime Xavier Spade. He has no idea I'm calling him, by the way. He has no idea I'm doing this video. Yo! I'm filming a video right now about sort of creative hacks. One of them was opening a book, pointing to a random word, and then coming up with something using that word or words. And another one was networking. So this is what I'm doing right now with you, and that's why the camera's on you right now. The word, did I wake you up?
Always.
So the word that, one of the words or the words that I found in the book that we're trying to get creative with is dissipating time, time dissipating. So what's the first thing that comes to mind for you in regards to like maybe a magic effect?
So many things. I love things like that. I think the first thing that comes to mind is this effect that I've wanted to do for years that I can't, and it's pouring a glass. It's kind of similar to air pouring. Pour a glass and a glass floats, but everything stops, the water included, in midair. You know, it's kind of like freezing time or, you know, slowing things down to a point where it kind of dissipates, you know?
Also, another one was fraternal intimacy.
Oh, well, I mean, that
kind of like what's going on right now.
Yeah.
So what would you see if you had an effect and the name was fraternal intimacy? What would that effect entail? What would be going on?
I think it would be something similar to like
a PK touches.
No, not even.
Oh, see, that's where I was going with it. That's interesting.
I was thinking more like what's that trick with the two cards get signed and they end up as one?
Oh yeah, like an anniversary waltz.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, interesting. Both two dudes.
Are you assuming my gender?
All right, thanks, man.
All right, brother.
All right, peace. The final tip. Ooh, that's bright. And the final tip is do nothing. Sounds counterintuitive when trying to be creative and proactive, but doing nothing is actually a great way to exercise the brain's boredom and is just as important as exercising the brain actively. Just think about it. When you're in bed at night, like for me, some of the best ideas that I get during my day are right before I fall asleep, right in that small sort of 15-minute gap where my brain's sort of working, but the rest of my body's asleep and sort of the rest of the mind is asleep, and I'm only focusing on that one navigable thought. Obviously, I have a notebook beside my bed where I write these thoughts down, but doing nothing allows your brain to relax and allows it to go places that you may not go because you're too distracted if you're doing something else. Another good thing to do is just to take a walk. Jeez, that's bright. Taking a walk obviously has a ton of advantages, not only for your health, but also for your mind, for your blood. It gets things going. You're seeing different things. You're looking at different parts of the world and you're seeing other people. You know, start making little brain exercises while you're walking around, or you can just sit somewhere and people watch. And so doing nothing is probably one of the easiest things to do, but also one of the more valuable tips on being creative. And that about wraps up a few tips on how to be creative. Lastly, I want to talk about one last thing, and this is not a paid endorsement in any way. A magician and creator by the name of Rory Adams, super smart kid, worked for Dynamo as a consultant at a super young age, you know, came up with a whole bunch of really cool magic. Well, he put out a book, and it's a great read, man. It's called Only Ideas. Only Ideas, your how-to guide to creating magic. 100+ ideas to get you started, by Rory Adams. So basically in this book, Rory not only gives you like 100 throwaway ideas that are really, really cool, no methods, just ideas, which I love because that is probably the hardest thing to find. But these plots and these ideas are literally gold. So if you're ever stuck or stumped, I'll leave the link below to this. Again, this is not a paid promotion. This is just something I think you guys would find really valuable. It also tells you how to start creating a magic trick. And coming from a successful creator and consultant himself, easy to read. Here, let me give you one example out of the book. Audio Predict, you can order blank recordable greetings cards if you fancy going beyond a written prediction. As soon as you open the card, your voice will begin to speak from within. And that's just one of 100. So many amazing ideas in here. Highly recommend picking this up. Again, I'll leave the link below. All right, guys, hope you enjoyed this video and hope you learned something new today. Hope that you apply some of these skills and some of these techniques that I do. I don't always use all of these all the time, but I definitely sample bits and parts here and there when I need to be creative, whether it's for a YouTube video or a magic effect. I want to thank you guys so much for the support on the last video. Well, most of you anyways. There was some backlash, obviously, as I would expect, but you know, the way I see it is there's more to teaching than methods, and there's more to learning than just finding out how something works. And if you're willing to stick around, I'm willing to teach you some more things, and hopefully you do. So subscribe if you're new here, like this video, and we'll see you on the next video. Peace.